Greetings, Gilliam the Rogue here with a PTS feedback video. While my PTS is currently updating, I'm going to be getting ready to do the Magic of Dragonite feedback video, investigating some of the changes, but I figured let's just take a peek at these patch notes and see if anything that the community has been discussing has been looked at, etc, etc, etc. So this is the last PTS increment. That does not mean that we'll not be getting anything else on next Monday when this patch goes live. The 23rd is when this will be live on PC. And I believe on the 6th or the 7th, it's going live for consoles. So we're just going to look through this really quick. Here we have some combat imbalance gameplay. So Secluded Grove, this ultimate in general now costs 15 more ultimate. So now you have a morph option that makes it cost roughly 70 ultimate instead of 75. So this is still going to be really strong if you take the alt return one, if you heal an ally under 50% health, and then the other one adds 4 extra heal ticks. This also got nerfed in a previous PTS patch by reducing the healing done by 33%. So it's still going to be a really nice, strong burst heal that has a cheaper ultimate cost, but it's going to be a little bit more balanced in terms of what it's doing. Because this is an AoE hot that's really, really strong. You can cast it. It gives a lot of resource management back from the green balance passive that wardens have. So it's a very, very powerful ultimate for what it does, and it's going to kind of balance using other ultimates as well, so you don't just always take this, because it was overperforming. So that's good to see this happen. Now we're going to go on. They're finally evaluating some of the stuff in hard mode Asylum Sanctorium. So they've made it, one of the achievements was before don't kill the adds, and now they made that impossible because they enrage rather frequently, and then that enrage stacks, so they get a 100% damage bonus for, I think it's like every 2 minutes or so that you leave them alive, and it just keeps going up until they do so much damage that you'll never live. So the poison guy, you can kind of let this enrage stack up. He's not an issue. The issue is the dual wield guy. He's jumping all over the place. He's leaving really nasty damage over time. So the only way to prevent them from enraging or remove their enrage if they do that is to defeat them. And then they're going to go dormant is what they use. They just like kneel down and don't do anything. And before, they only went down for 30 seconds, and they have a lot of fucking HP, and so does this boss, and he has even more because he also goes invulnerable. So this is a super long fight. Like, it's very long. We thought Halls of Fabrication General was long on hard mode when it first came out, like 18-minute fight, whatever. This is going to be even longer, probably, because there's so much effective health going on here, and just like moments where you can't do any damage, that it's going to be really, really attrition-based. You make a mistake, you're going to get punished for it. And now they're going to kind of retract from that. So they said that they're going to take longer to enrage, so you don't have to prioritize them as much. You don't need insane DPS, which is good, because not every group is amazing. And then they'll remain dormant a little bit longer after you defeat them when they're engaged with St. Olm. So doing the hard mode where you have both or one mini-boss aside him. So that's really, really good. Now, what I don't like is they're not mentioning how long they're going to go down. Is it 5 seconds? Is it 10 seconds? Is it 20? Like, how much duration? Are you doubling? Are you tripling? Whatever. I think at least a minute and a half is going to be decent for average players, but if you want to keep this the hardest of the hard content, then probably 45 seconds to a minute, and then kind of just looking at some of the damage values on the dual wield guy, because he's really, really nuts. The poison is kind of whatever. You can bash or interrupt a lot of his attacks, so he can be left alone a little bit more, but dual wield bro is fucking just tearing people to shreds, like what old Steel Tornado used to do, kind of. He's bringing back the old glory days of stam builds in PvP. That's what it feels like. So yeah, that is going to help out. It'll be a little bit more manageable. Still think it's going to be a very difficult fight, and that's good. We need some difficulty in today's day and age. However, I just don't like how it's not difficulty of skill, it's difficulty of attrition. The Morrowind patch has not made PvE difficult in terms of engagement and like, ooh, what cool, interesting strategies do we have to devise, or what interesting builds do we have to kind of stray away from the meta and focus more on group utility with damage mitigation instead of just DPS tests. None of that has happened, and instead we're just forced to slow down our DPS through heavy attacks and stuff. So I would kind of like to see a little bit more mechanic-based difficulty where it's like Maw of Lorcage was a perfect example of this, where like twins or Rakat, like there are very clear mechanics that you must do, and it's kind of you do them or you don't, and if you don't, you fail, but you can learn doing them. It's relatively easy. Like Backroom is a really good example. There are hard, clear mechanics that have methods that must be met, that you can strategize and think, okay, what classes are a little bit better at doing this, etc., etc. But it's a little bit more simpler to follow in terms of, okay, we need to go in Backroom and kill the Void Assassins or remove the Braziers or whatever the hell the mechanic was, and then go back and prevent the boss from one-shotting people. So in Halls of Fabrication, we don't really have that. We just have a lot of AoE damage that ignores AoE mitigation. You stand in red, you die. You're heavy attacking because you have no fucking resources because everything drains. So yeah, I don't like the direction of combat in PvE in terms of difficulty. It feels very artificial, but whatever. At least we're seeing some tone down to it so that not more than 12 people in the world can clear this sort of thing. Looking at other stuff. So now we're into combat balance, and here we have Sork. So this is the Crystal Frag change that I was talking about a couple videos ago. Now Crystal Shards, this base ability, and the Crystal Fragment morph will no longer stun an enemy hit. So you're not getting the stun out of it. You have a clear morph option in terms of, okay, do I want CC and AoE potential, or do I want cheaper cost, instant cast, and extra damage? So you have two clear-cut morph options, and each have their utility. Now, I still think that Crystal Blast needs to be adjusted. It needs, like the base skill either needs a cost reduction removal. Crystal Frags should apply to both, where they have that chance to become instant cast. Maybe leave Crystal Blast's Magicka cost associated with it, so that Crystal Frags kind of retains, hey, you do more damage and reduce cost, and then Crystal Blast is stun, slight AoE damage, it is really weak, and then still an instant cast, but you're having clear choices. Because even with the stun and the AoE damage, the biggest issue of Crystal Blast is its insanely disgusting Magicka cost and cast time. So that's why people don't use it. So you have to address that in some way, shape, or form, either by removing or toning some of it down, or rewarding that cast a little bit more. Because that damage in terms of what it's doing now is not enough for the Magicka drain. And the stun is nice, yeah, but like what happens when I'm using it against PvE mobs where a stun is useless? So those are the biggest issues at the moment. Rune Prison has got its cost increased by 16%. This is going to be pretty much the new Sork stun. Like, losing Crystal Frags, everyone is losing their minds, but they're forgetting that Rune Prison is insane. You can't block it, you can't dodge it. Crystal Flags was blockable, dodgeable. The Sun was good against opponents who didn't know what was going on, or maybe they weren't running an add-on to tell them to dodge or something like that. So it was good against players who are already being punished enough. Now that's not the case, but like against a decent player or someone who has an add-on saying, oh hey, this really powerful attack is coming, dodge, it was pretty much whatever, right? Like they would just dodge it even if they're not looking at you, or they'd be like, okay, his hands are glowing, he's going to do a powerful attack, I need to look out. Rune Prison, you can't do that. It's just, okay, I'm stunned now. So yeah, losing Crystal Frag stun is not the end of the world that many people think it is, because Rune Prison is nuts. And then in PvE, losing a stun is like whatever. PvE questing, you need to stun a mob that dies in 2 hits anyways. Looking at weapon ultimates, so Sword and Board ultimate has gone up by 35 ultimate. I still think this is a really, really strong ultimate for what it does. It gives you stamina regen while blocking. It makes your block free. One morph option reflects. The other makes all costs have nothing if they're from the Sword and Board skill line. So yeah, this is a very, very, very good ultimate for what it does. I don't think it like, I think 150 would be perfect for what this would do, because it still has a cheaper ultimate cost than other things where it's like, ah, shit, I don't have enough time to save up for a normal 200 ultimate or something like that, or 250, like if you're a Dragonite, so I need to pop it really quick and just live a little bit longer so that I can fight the attrition battle. But yeah, whatever. It's still a good change to see happen, because 100 ultimate for what this was doing was absolutely nuts. Bow Scattershot, this is the Scattershot ability, not an ultimate. So instead of applying a Disorient now, this will stun for 1.5 seconds. This is kind of whatever. Disorients are really, really strong because they're kind of finicky. Sometimes they ignore CC immunity, sometimes they don't. So if you line this up in tandem with someone who's already crowd controlled, it'll really fuck up the game's response to CC break, CC immunity, and so on. So I'm glad to see Disorients just going away. They really don't have a place in this game anymore, because they're way too stupid. Like, a thing that ignores basic mechanics of, hey, you are immune to crowd control, and then you get crowd controlled, they shouldn't really exist. So removing them is good. And then a 1.5 second stun. The other thing about Disorients is that if you dealt damage, they broke. So it wasn't a 5 second hard CC, it was a 5 second, like, alright, maybe he doesn't CC break, or maybe he doesn't take damage, and I can kind of run away, or load up burst, or get some resources back. So having a hard stun is more advantageous to the offensive playstyle. Like, I want to keep up the pressure, so having that stun helps out the bow build in terms of either creating distance, because they'll still have Magnum Shot, which will knock them back, and stuff like that. So this is probably going to be a really nice boon to bow builds or primary bow builds in Cyrodiil, without making them really crazy. Because, I mean, 1.5 second stun is pretty short. Restoration Staff, Panacea, increase the cost of this ultimate to 125 instead of 100. This is not enough. So this is enough for the base morph and the one that casts all of the Resto Staff abilities. I believe it's called Lifebringer. Let's go to that website again and remember names, because I don't... One morph option is like, you never take this because the other is way too strong. So let's go to Resto Staff here. Restoration Staff. Life Giver. So yeah, this is the one that's really whatever. It doesn't do a lot. It's kind of eh. So this automatically casts all of the abilities from the Restoration Staff skill line except for Siphon. It's Regeneration, Blessing of Protection, and Ward. So it doesn't cast Grand Healing or Siphon. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like, what is this giving me? Blessing of Protection, I get Minor Berserk for 8 seconds. I get a decent heal over time, and then I get a bubble. So it's like a really nice oh shit button, but it only happens once. Versus Light's Champion, which gives you Major Force and Protection for 5 seconds after receiving the heal. So the way that this works is it has 5 heal ticks. It shoots out once. The first person gets a buff for 5 seconds that heals them and grants them Major Force and Protection. So if this is only going to one person, you get 10 seconds of Major Force and Protection and a shit ton of healing. If this goes on one person, they get it for 5 seconds, and it'll go up to 5 targets, because 1 every second. So this is a really, really efficient skill, because it's giving up to 5 people Major Force and Protection. So 15% critical hit damage, which will apply to healing and damage, and Major Protection, reducing all the damage they take by 30%, on top of this tremendous heal over time. So we look at this tooltip. This is 6k, and this is base. This is not looking at like gear and stuff like that. So we have a base cast of 5,908 health. So that's really crazy. Now we're going to go look at Breath of Life really quick. So let's change my class. So we're going to go to Restoring Light. So Breath of Life heals for 1323, and then if we look at our morphs, it's 1232. So the reason that Panacea looked so high was because of an issue. So if we look at this heals for 1,025 at level 1, pretty much. With base stats, you're naked, nothing associated with you other than like your base max magicka, spell damage, etc. So 1,025 health every 1 second for 5 seconds versus a burst heal that heals for 1,200. So not only are you gaining Major Protection and Force for this duration, this 5 second or 10 second if you're solo duration, but you're also healing pretty much for a Breath of Life every 1 second for 5 seconds. And that's on 125 ultimate cost. In terms of how easy it is to generate ultimate in this game, especially on some classes like Warden with major heroism, it's way too strong. And the fact that I can have 2, 3, 4 people running this and just alternating it and not being able to kill them, something more needs to happen. I really think that the morph that gives major force and protection either needs to see a massive heal nerf, and it's like, okay, here's these really strong buffs, but the heal is nerfed, or just remove one of the buffs. Like, major protection shouldn't be there. Like, major force is fine, whatever, leave it there, but major protection for 10 seconds on 125 ultimate versus... Like, let's, again, open up that thing and then look at other skills that give major protection and how long they last and how much they cost. So, major protection pretty much exists on Nightblade and Warden. So, we're going to go to Shadow Skills. Consuming Darkness gives major protection for 13.5 seconds, and then if we have Dark Veil, that'll go up to about 16 or 17. But it costs 200 ultimate, and it's not healing anyone during its duration unless they get low health and activate a synergy. So, in terms of what we're doing, we have double the ultimate cost, but we have less than double the duration without the additional healing. And now we can go look at Warden, and then we go to their Sleet Storm. So here we have Northern Storm or Permafrost, lasts 8 seconds and gives major protection for the duration. So, in both of these instances, we have an ultimate that costs twice as much as Panacea on live. It costs 100. It's going to 125, but does not have any added effect. Like, there's no healing. There's a little bit of damage associated with them, but the biggest reason why this is so strong is you get major force and protection for double the duration of a 200 ultimate, or more than a 200 ultimate cost, and... you get a breath of life every 1 second. So yeah, that's the biggest issue with that skill. This is not going to fix that. Now, let's continue. Now we have Heavy Armor finally getting nerfed. So they're removing Wrath. And what they're doing is they're splitting Rapid Mending into 2 passives. Revitalize is taking that 25% additional resources from heavy attacks off of Rapid Mending and putting it into this new passive called Revitalize. And then Rapid Mending... is going to continue giving you 8% bonus healing received. So any healing you do or you take from your allies. So we're losing 200 weapon and spell damage. And before amps, that's not a lot. And even after amps, where if you have like major, minor sorcery, you're losing 60, I think, or 50. You're losing 50 weapon and spell damage at most if you have major and minor sorcery and brutality. So losing 250 weapon and spell damage is... nothing in terms of what Heavy Armor gives. So Heavy Armor, everyone's like, oh, decon your Heavy Armor, it's garbage again. ZeniMax loves nerfing Heavy Armor. Yeah, because it's broken as shit, and it's still going to be really, really strong. In a game where being outnumbered is the hardest issue of players' outcries in terms of balance, a set of armor that makes you be able to do that is why it's strong. No amount of number balancing, unless you make it completely useless, will ever change that. Because in terms of what today's meta is you either try and solo Zergs or you join the Zerg. And Heavy Armor fits into trying to solo Zergs, and it allows you to do so very, very well. Obviously, you're still not going to be able to 1v30 people, but you can still fight outnumbered very, very easily compared to medium or light armor. It's a joke. Like, I went from medium to Heavy Armor on my Stamina Nightblade, and yeah, Wrath is really nice. I'm gaining a lot of damage. I actually have more damage on Heavy Armor than I do in medium because of it. And losing that is going to suck in terms of damage production, but the reason why Heavy Armor is so good is not because of the extra damage. It's because I can survive burst, where it's like, I have a clip in my new video that I'm working on right now where I'm pretty much with another person in a tower and we fight like, I don't know, 15, 20 EP, and there were so many times in that fight where I was like, man, if I was in medium armor, I would have fucking died immediately. Like, within the first 20 seconds, I would have just got pulverized. And through that fight, my health gets so low, or my resources get so low, and all I have to do is pop a vigor and heavy attack, and I'm able to go put up the pressure, and then we ended up winning. Enough DC came into the fight, we killed at least 10 of them, and then the rest of them, DC joined in with the fight, and we were able to win. But it wasn't because of the damage of heavy armor, it was because of the survivability, that ability to outlast the burst and just out-heal, get resources back, and while taking sustained pressure. That is the power of heavy armor, and removing Wrath is not going to change that. So it's still going to be a very, very powerful armor weight in Elder Scrolls Online and PvP, and even PvE. Like tanks, like you losing Wrath, like whatever, you lose 100 DPS, who cares? So in PvE, Wrath or heavy armor is still going to be good for tanks, and then in PvP, it's still going to be great for surviving. And in today's meta of 30k HP builds and just like getting ganked and shit like that, being tanky is what keeps you alive, not being good. Like, I don't care how good of a player you are, if you get onslaughted from stealth and you don't have Radiant Mage Light on, you're dead. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are. So having a set that makes you pretty much null and void from being one-shot is why it's strong. But now let's move on. Combat fixes and improvements. So one thing I want to mention on, no Templar balance in this patch, or Warden balance, other than the heal nerf, which is welcome, but no love for Warden DPS, no Magicka or stamina buffs, and yeah, it's really disappointing. And then same with Templar, like there's no fixes to the class that really bring them back up in line in terms of damage production, and they're in a really sad spot at the moment. As well as kind of addressing some of the major concerns of the endgame raiding community. I understand at this point that we're a dying breed and we're a niche, but we're still here. And I mean, you're making content like Asylum Sanctorium that's designed for us, yet the target audience continues to dwindle because of decision making in terms of no transparency, there's no improvement to resource management, the meta is the same, it's 5 stamina DPS, 3 Magicka DPS, or 4-4. Like, the issues that were here 6 months ago are still here in terms of, like, okay, we just got one-shot by stupid RNG stacking mechanics where there's no counterplay because the boss did 4 things at once that just lined up because things aren't put on percent HP values, they're put on timers. So, like, it doesn't, like, it's really disappointing to see none of these really big issues being addressed. And then in PvP, too, like, what about the Zerg mentality? What about looking at AoE caps? Were they enough? What about looking at performance issues at Cyrodiil, at stuff like that? Like, these issues, the ones that are hurting the game the most, aren't being even, like, talked about. And it's really, really worrisome. So I hope that ZeniMax kind of gets over this secrecy thing. Like, they've always prided themselves in being a little bit more hush-hush and kind of, like, dropping secrets and, like, oh, cool, Morrowind is coming out to ESO. Like, we get it. The surprise factor is great, but it also comes with this great issue of your player base feeling disconnected from you and, like, people losing interest because, like, we're sitting here getting shit on, and like, the aid relief is like, hey, we're here, but we're not going to do anything about it. Like, you're kind of fucked. So, I would just really like to see some transparency and touch more on frequently talked about issues. And if you disagree with them and say you guys are overlooking this, or this isn't really that big of a deal, or we have other ways that we can fix this, then talk about it. Even if you don't agree with the community and say, nah, you guys are wrong, which the community is totally wrong on so many subject matters. But if you come out and talk about that and give proof and evidence and talk with us, that's what makes the healthy game. That's what makes people want to stick around and be like, okay, I can deal with it. It's the dead silence. It's the slap in the face and constant, like, negligence that people get upset about. Like, that's why I see people leave, is not because balance, not because this, it's because the really hard-hitting matters aren't talked about frequently enough. And ZeniMax has made strides and improvements over the past 2 or 3 years compared to when the old lead developer was on and stuff. Like, when Rich came on, this game saw a tremendous like breath of fresh air in terms of increased transparency, but it's still not enough. And it's sad to say because I mean nothing is ever enough. But yeah, I would just really like to see some extra discussion. And I know everyone has a real life. It's just a video game, shit like that. But it's also your life at the moment, right? Like this is your job. This is people's interaction, their hobby, their fun, the thing that they escape reality from. And the fact that a lot of us are being more upset with this than with other stuff, it's like, why should we stay? Me personally, I'm staying. I'm happy with some of the things. I'm still an angry, broody, jaded human being, and I will constantly complain, but I have a thick skin compared to what it takes to get rid of me, sort of thing. So don't think you can get rid of me, Zos. So yeah, I don't know, whatever. I don't like to talk about negative shit like this much. It's a patch notes video. So bug fixes, you can't cast Petrify on CC immune enemies anymore, so it'll save your Magicka, and it'll also prevent you from CCing them while they should be CC immune. And then there's an issue right now with Eclipse. They're going to fix it before this goes live, hopefully. They buffed Merciless Charge, which is nice, but it's still not enough. So it got a 1700 damage bonus over 5 seconds. Let's pop open the calculator in terms of what this is going to do. So we gain 340 DPS. Yeah. So yeah, not really that good. 600 or 6,000 damage over 5 seconds is really not enough. That's 1,200 DPS. And then we look at other sets like the Maelstrom Bow, which add like I don't know, like 5 to 10k DPS. Like it's questionable to see this come in. Like, why not just make it that targets affected by Merciless Charge take bonus damage from other abilities, or make them, I don't know. You could think of something really cool. I'm drawing a blank and I don't want to give shitty suggestions, but I don't think that a damage over time effect on Merciless Charge is what needs to be done with this skill. Whatever. Fixes, they talked about the clarification of this skill made it sound like it applied to ultimates, and they have clarified, hey, nope, that is not how we want this to be, because that'd be broken to shit, so it applies to magic and stamina. Thank you for that. And then they also fixed some stuff where it was not reducing the cost of Living Vines, Nature's Grasp, or Energy Ward. So that's really, really good. Some bug fixing, and then also clarification that, hey, you can't abuse this. So 30% cost reduction on all heals, though. That's very, very, very good in terms of PvE. A little too strong in PvP, though. So that covers everything from the PTS patch. Again, this is PTS. Like we saw in Horns of the Reach, a lot of this stuff could change. We could see way more bug fixes coming in. We could see performance increases. We could see whatever. We don't know what's on the other side of the door until it gets here. So I'm really hoping that the final patch on this Monday, or next Monday, has some additional stuff that reevaluates the direction in terms of balanced decisions and priorities, in terms of like what classes needs the most help, where effort should be focused on, in terms of should we make new content or should we look at old content and make it better. Just like improving reward mechanisms, making sure the content itself is fun, like PvE heavy attack meta going away, please. And then stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully we see some additional stuff coming in, but overall Clockwork City is a step in the right direction. I will say that they are looking at stuff that needs to be fixed. It's great to see heavy armor finally nerfed in some way. It's not enough, but it's still something. So they want to do stuff. They want to get to that final point, but it's just so hard in a system this big, in a game this big, with so many like placebos that people shout out on the forums. Oh, this is the issue. No, this is the issue, and like there's just so much that needs to be done. I don't know. I almost feel like this game could go with doing what Final Fantasy did, where they just take it off the servers for like a year and then just come back and be like, hey, look at our fucking great-ass game. we fixed a lot of the stuff. But who knows? That probably will never happen. Yeah. Whatever. Again, PTS video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave your comments, feedbacks, discussion, whatever. Make sure you leave it positive if you're going to go on the official forums. No one likes a jackass who just says, fuck you, I hate you all. Stuff like that. Like, if you're going to be an angry, jaded piece of shit, like I am, at least try and remain constructive. Give a little bit of feedback. Don't make it just a name-calling fest. Like, that gets nothing done. Yeah. Until next time, I'll see you guys around.